Hi students, this is your video mini lecture for week 1. It's important though that you know that you need to read before you watch this video. So if you haven't read yet, you want to turn me off and go read and then come back to this video, because I am in fact going to spoil everything on this video if you haven't read it yet. The poems I'm not going to really address much. Know who wrote them, the literary devices that you see in them, be familiar with them. For instance, if you see similes and metaphors, some imagery, maybe some irony, be on the lookout for those things. And if you're not familiar with your literary terms, and even if you are and you just want a nice listing of them all in one place, I have uploaded for you into the course resources part of the course on Blackboard. There is a literary analysis terms PowerPoint that covers, all of the terms that we're pretty much going to be discussing in these 5 weeks. So, know who wrote them, pay attention to those terms as you're reading, and then that's all, that we're going to speak to about the poetry this week. A Rose for Emily is the first story that you were to have read. Now, Faulkner is not an easy read, obviously, and he doesn't package everything, as we expected. It's not in this wonderful chronological order. It's in what we call stream of consciousness, which just means that when he thought about it, that's what he wrote. Whether it was in the chronological order or not, it's kind of like trying to watch The Event or something like that on TV. You just get absolutely lost if you're just a little bit out of whack, and that's what he did there. Now, your first clue to that is the fact that Emily's dead when the story begins, and then, a little bit later she's alive, and then we just flash back and forward, back and forward. Alright, for A Rose for Emily, know that she did not buy arsenic for rats. Not at all, even though that's what the pharmacist assistant wrote on the package. She bought the arsenic to kill Homer Barron, and she did. She murdered Homer, obviously because he wouldn't marry her, and she had assumed that he was going to. Now, some students are confused and think that Emily also murdered her father. She did not. Emily's dad died of natural causes. The thing that is crazy, because Emily is crazy, about her father's death is the fact that she left his body in the house for 3 days before she let anybody come and get him. Now, so know those things. The biggest deal about Faulkner is the climax in this story, because that last sentence, if you didn't read it all the way through, you need to read it. That last sentence is jaw-dropping. The iron gray strand of hair. Well, Emily was young and black-headed when she dated Homer. So that tells us that she had been sleeping with his corpse, which is very horrific. Now, the next one, speaking of horror stories and horrific, you had to read was The Lottery. And you think, ooh, somebody's about to get rich. And that's not at all what happens in the story. And Shirley Jackson wants you to think that. And she also she goes to great pains to make the setting seem normal, festive even, to lull us into thinking that this is, some really nice little small town festival that we're reading about. And she doesn't hint to us much at all that this is a sacrifice to their fertility gods. And she never really calls it that, but we understand through the dialogue, through the conversations with other characters, that they do this, they have the lottery, so that their crops are better. So obviously Jackson is speaking to the folly of organized religion that she has seen in her lifetime. Now, satire is making fun of something, hoping that it will change. That's in your PowerPoint in the course resources area in Blackboard. But here she's making fun of people, and an old expression might be, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. So in other words, if your family loses the lottery every year and you're left to eat your crops alone, what does it matter? how much corn you have that year. So she's just making fun of people who, believe in her estimation, irrational things, such as human sacrifice, which is what we've got with Tessie and the lottery. Now, the last story is Harrison Bergeron, and I have to confess to you that I've never read it before I was preparing to teach this class. It is science fiction, and the other two I would put in the genre of horror stories because, of the killing, the murder. But with Harrison, it's set in the future, even 70 years ahead of what we are now, and it's very Orwellian, like the George Orwell 1984, and where he introduced Big Brother, and Animal Farm, where people try to be equal, but some are more equal than others. That's just the way people are. Well, in the story, I just thought it was fascinating, the idea of handicapping people, and he borrowed that term, by the way, from golf, because your handicap in golf is there. It's set to try to level the playing field, so that two guys who really aren't on the same level, or girls, I don't want to be sexist, can get out and hit the links and have some level of friendly competition. But Vonnegut takes that same term and addresses it to everything. We're handicapped on how we look, on how we speak, on how we think, and even how they ballet dance, which I thought was incredibly fascinating. And nobody can be any better than anybody else at anything. So what you end up with is a world of complete mediocrity. And then we have the handicapper general and Harrison, who is also meets his demise in this story because he's just too outstanding. He's just too great. He's just too great at everything. But the satire, again, is making fun of something, hoping it will change. Even, last century, Vonnegut thought, hey, our government's too big. Our government is in our business. Let me write about it and see if maybe they'll back off a little bit. And that's the point with Harrison Bergeron. I hope this helps you understand the stories a little bit better. If you have any questions ever, please feel free to ask. I hope to hear from you soon on the discussion boards and maybe through email or some other communication medium.